What is up, Green Bay Packers fans, and welcome back to another episode of the Daily Draft. I am your host and the publisher of Packer Report, Ross Uglem, and today we are doing a fan-requested video from our poll when we did expand to 7 days a week, and that is probably the biggest winner, and I don't know how much it's actually going to affect his draft stock, but probably the top performer at this year's NFL Combine in Indianapolis, and that would be Louisville and former Wisconsin running back Isaac Guerendo. This is, of course, the Daily Draft brought to you by Badger State Brewing in Green Bay, Wisconsin. Let's roll. So, Guerendo, the first thing you have to talk about, and you do have to talk about it, is that he is a historically good athlete. And I want to reiterate that. When I say historically good, I don't just mean he was the best athlete in Indianapolis. I mean, he is the number 6 all-time running back for relative athletic score, which goes back to, I think, either 1983 or 1987. It goes back to the 80s. So he's the 6th most athletic running back of all time. And that's just going off of running, jumping, and agilities. And he did everything. So these are not like, oh, that's a really good RAS, but we don't have agilities. We got it all. Like he benched too. Like he benched, he ran, he jumped, and he did agilities. He did everything. And he ended up with, I think, a 9.97, which means that he is a 99.7th percentile athlete. He's not just better than 99 out of 100 guys as an athlete. He's better than like 997 out of 1,000 guys. He is a freak space alien, whatever you want to call it. That's Guerendo. An unbelievable specimen from an athletic standpoint. And part of, we're going to talk about this as a con because you have to, but part of the positive is he does have light tread on the tires, not heavily used in college. So you kind of have this lottery ticket, and that is my definition of what Isaac Guerendo is to me. He is a lottery ticket. And we'll talk about some of the reasons why. I mean, the odds kind of are part of why I'm saying he's a lottery ticket as well, as far as his likelihood of succeeding in the NFL. He plays a physical brand of football, and you would expect a player who is as big, strong, and fast as he is to play a physical brand of football. I mean, he plays like he looks. He looks like a big, powerful, strong runner. He plays football like a big, powerful, strong runner, and that is appreciated. I think people occasionally get on AJ Dillon about not breaking enough tackles or not running through people like a dude that looks like AJ Dillon should, in theory. I'm higher, but they take plenty of crap for it on Twitter. Like I'm higher, especially as a 4-year body of work on AJ Dillon than most. I think he's a really good, and the numbers have borne this out. Like he's really good when they run zone, and they run a ton of zone. So he's a really good Green Bay Packer. But people get frustrated with him, and I do understand some of that. And one of the big things that I do understand with AJ is the lack of breaking tackles. He's a pile pusher, not a tackle breaker. And you do see a little bit more tackle breaking from Guerendo. He is getting better. I think 2023, of course, you just read a box score, you can see that it was easily his most productive season at Louisville, but I think he actually got better as a football player. I think he played better. I think he started to understand the running back position a little bit more. And you can see some of that pass catching. He's a wide receiver convert. I believe he came into Wisconsin as a wide receiver, moved to running back, and then transferred out. You do see some of that pass catching ability from his days as a wide receiver, and some of his kind of understanding of route concepts and leverage and how to beat linebackers, how to do some of that stuff. Like he's not just a check down guy. So there's some of his time as at least a prep wide receiver in what he does on film and what he did when he was finally successful there at Louisville. He's better in pass pro than you might think for a guy that, again, we keep talking about, a former wide receiver, probably not going to be your first guess as, there's some run blocking in high school for wide receivers. There's part of that, right? So it's not that crazy of a transition, but wide receivers don't pass block. I mean, they're very, very rarely pass block. So for him being Guerendo, I mean, for Guerendo to be as good in the pass pro game as he is a little bit surprising for a guy where that's 100% kind of will, attitude. It's taught. It should not be natural for him considering how he came up in the game of football. Tacklers bounce off of him, especially the ones kind of coming in. I don't know how many times. And it's rare, and it's certainly a high bar to set for somebody. But I don't know how many times Guerendo just ran through somebody's face I think that was a little bit rare, but guys bouncing off of him, guys coming at an angle and not getting a clean shot of him and bouncing off, that happens plenty. And he doesn't fumble the football. I've talked about fumbles not being one of my like big ones. It's more of a tiebreaker, right? Same with drops at wide receiver. Fumbling problems, kind of break ties for me. They don't place you in a grade. They don't place you in a round for me. But I had to put it in the pros. I mean, you can look at his fumble numbers, look at his ball security when he's carrying the football. He's not loose with it. He doesn't put it on the ground, so that goes in the pros column. Very unproductive player. We're obviously in the cons now. Very, very unproductive. Fewer than 1,400 career yards for a 5-year player. Spent 5 years in college and had fewer than 1,400 rushing yards. And you'll see guys in college have 1,400-yard seasons. He had 1 year with more than 400 rushing yards. So again, this is for a guy. If we're going to talk about like historical athleticism, if we're going to talk about him as a potential second round or third round pick, I'm not having that conversation, but I've seen others have it. So if we're going to talk about that, we need to talk about that lack of production. And Jim Coburn does geometrics, which is another like math bomby type thing that I've found over the years is to be interesting. He does a lot of like market share stuff and a lot of projection stuff, and then kind of how you line up historically. And I would encourage you guys to go check out. It's Jim, like Jim, like JIM, geometrics, or Jim Coburn, COBRN. I would encourage you to go watch his Guerendo video because he talks about the running backs that just on a production basis were as unproductive as Guerendo was. Athleticism, whatever. College production and the successful names basically don't exist. They basically don't exist. So that's a tough one. It's a tough one. It's a tough question. It's a tough ask for you to spend a high to mid round pick on a guy when you look at the guys that didn't produce the way he didn't produce and try to find a name of a guy that worked out. Listen to Andy Herman's podcast about the Ron Wolf way, and we're not looking for outliers. We're not looking for the exceptions. Guerendo is going to be an exception if he hits. So that has to be part of it. What's his 50th percentile outcome? Well, Isaac Guerendo's most likely 50th percentile outcome is that he doesn't work, that it doesn't happen. Now, if he hits his 90th percentile outcome, he's a Pro Bowler. What are the odds of that happening? 10%. I mean, that's kind of how I view this kid. Does not have a natural feel for the position, and that could come from a number of things. Could come from the fact that he played wide receiver, could come from a number of things, but that smoothness, that buttery stuff that you got from Aaron Jones, that's not in Isaac Guerendo's game, right? Talking about vision, talking about cutbacks, talking about jukes and little cuts and, like I said, smoothness. There's no smoothness. This kid has no smoothness. It is start, stop. It is try to run through you. It is burst. It is it's all athleticism with Guerendo. It's all. It's like if relative athletic score was a football player, it would be Isaac Guerendo. It is the way that he plays the game. There's no nuance. And maybe and that's part of it. I keep saying lottery ticket. Maybe if you get him with an awesome running back coach, they unlock the secret sauce. I don't know that for sure. I don't, but maybe. I keep saying, that's why he's a lottery ticket. Poor vision. Trusts his athleticism tremendously. He tries to bounce stuff outside. And look, if I was an athlete like him, I'd try to bounce stuff outside too. But it might get him killed at the NFL level. I mean, you cannot just continue, and it'll get him benched, frankly. It'll make the offensive line coach super mad. And for a team like the Packers, when the offensive coordinator is an offensive line coach, it'll get you on the bench. Now, they don't run like power where you really get screamed at for trying to bounce it outside. They're going to run outside zone, and you might be one of those guys that doesn't like to cut back. But you start trying to bounce inside zone outside. If they do run some gap scheme stuff, you try to bounce it outside, you're going to get benched or killed. And that is a legitimate concern with Guerendo, is the constantly going for the home run or trusting his speed, trying to run away from interior defensive linemen, running into the laps of edge defenders, running into pursuit linebackers. Like, you just can't you cannot bounce stuff outside with the frequency that I think Guerendo tries to bounce stuff outside. It is just unlikely. It's a low percentage play, frankly, as this kid kind of is. 20 15+ yard runs in 5 years. 20 explosives in 5 years. It doesn't make sense. You look at his athletic profile, you understand that he is one of the most athletic human beings to ever play running back at the NCAA level. Ever. And you're going to tell me he's got 20 runs of 15 yards or more in 5 years? Which, again, there's just so much about him that doesn't make sense. And that lack of explosive production put against his explosive broad jump, his explosive vertical jump, his explosive 10-yard dash, 20-yard dash, 40-yard dash. Make it make sense, please. And that's like, I saw the stuff, right? And I've talked about, like, I'm a Wisconsin fan, so you got to listen to me. Okay. But like, it's concerning that, and I can't remember the second running back, and I apologize, but obviously he's behind Braylon Allen. And then there's a second, back whose name is escaping me, but like, they weren't going to jump those guys. He wasn't going to play over Braylon and this other kid. Okay, then why is he going to be a good NFL running back? Why is he going to jump NFL players on a depth chart if he was, quote unquote, never going to play at Wisconsin? Like, that's a problem for me. And I have a ton of respect for Wisconsin football. I do. A good buddy of mine is now the offensive line coach there. And that respect goes back to Monty Ball, goes back to Ron Dane, goes back to Melvin Gordon, goes back to Jonathan Taylor. I get it. Running back university, all the respect in the world for Badger football. Truly, I do. Love J.J. Watt, love T.J. Watt, love T.J. Edwards, love Badger football. If you can't make it at Wisconsin, not making it in the NFL is like very much on the table. That's all I'm saying. Oh, he's never going to play over these guys. Okay, well, Braylon Allen is a 3rd or a 4th round guy for me. So if he's never going to play over a 3rd or a 4th round guy, that's not great, right? Not great, Bob. So that's a little troubling. Packers fit, probably not. It's my opinion. Speed, and we've talked about speed. We definitely talked about it with the Tennessee running back, who's a name for whatever reason. Just Jalen Wright keeps escaping me. But the Tennessee kid, yeah, he's fast, and I used his speed as a plus when we're talking about at least the timed speed for Dillon and Jacobs not being great. But they're not going to just grab, in my opinion, they're not just going to grab another big 225, 230 pound back, even if he is fast. I don't think that diversifies the way that you can attack people very well. He doesn't break away. Like, again, this is timed speed. So he doesn't break away, as I mentioned. And he's okay as a receiver, but he's not a receiving back. So if we're talking about rounding out the room again, if we're talking about, what can be accomplished, we're probably not talking about we're probably not talking about Guerendo. If he hits his 80th percentile outcome, if he hits his 90th percentile outcome, okay. But he's still not showing like this receiving back status, like a Shipley, like a Laub, like whoever, to really round out the way that you can attack people with your backfield. Might be a hell of a special teamer with athleticism like that, but I don't think he's your RB3. And if you're like Andy and you believe that A.J. Dillon might not even make the team, I'd be really scared of your RB2 being Isaac Guerendo. Anyway, overall, he's got a solid round 5 grade to me. And in round 5, I'm willing to buy the lottery ticket, but maybe not if I'm the Green Bay Packers. He's my 10th ranked running back. Again, I'm willing to buy the lottery ticket. I don't think he makes sense in Green Bay's room. I don't. So I don't think he's a very likely Green Bay Packer, but he's a round 5 guy for me, my 10th ranked running back. And really quick before we go, I will give you my overall ranking, and that's 140, my 140th ranked player is Isaac Guerendo from Louisville, formerly from Wisconsin. Guys, thanks so much for watching or listening. If you're on the podcast side, how can you help us out? Buy the Green Bay Draft Guide powered by Packer Report using promo code DAILY. That's DAILY, as in the Daily Draft, for 10% off. Check us out over at Packer Report or follow me. I'm at Ross Uglem. We're at Packer Report 66. Shout out Ray Nitschke right there on X or Twitter. And do everything you're supposed to do right here at the Pack a Day Podcast YouTube channel. Like, subscribe, click the bell, get the notifications so that you can get all of the Packers content that you require on a daily basis. Have a great rest of your day, guys. Go Pack, go.